Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 3 and first session of day 3, which is actually session number 5 of the 20 sessions that we have planned. And today we are going to learn about dealing with images, photos in HTML. And we will see a few more things in the coming session. So far, we have got introduced to what HTML is, what web pages are, how web applications are created, and what are the basic ingredients of a web page. There are 3, as you can recall. One is the text, second is color, and third is the images. So we have already learned a lot about text. Yesterday, we went through a whole lot of details about text, how to set fonts, how to also deal with colors of the text. Fine. Today, we are going to learn about the third component, which is images, and we will also get to know about colors through images, right? So color is useful in text, color is useful in images, and color is again useful independently in creating the layouts. So it will come again and again. So we'll have a separate detailed session on colors also, but it is something that will be used everywhere. To decorate the text, decorate the image, we will use colors, and to decorate the whole page itself, we will use colors. All right, let's get started with session 5. And today we are going to learn about images. So what is an image? And why should we use images? So researchers have shown that people remember 80% of what they see and only 20% of what they read. Okay, your visual memory is much stronger than your other memory. So if you have watched a movie, or if you have watched a scene or a picture, it goes through a whole lot of processing in your mind. And that is how it remains in your brain. I hear some noise. May you please go on mute? Yeah, please remain on mute if you are not speaking. Thank you. So, images actually improve the design and the appearance of web page. Images will make your pages catchy, and you can get images created using HTML, not actually HTML, but there is a technology called SVG, which helps you create images, drawings as you wish. However, it's easier to get images using other tools like your camera. Okay, and there are plenty of images available online. You can always use your camera to click a photograph and then save it. And so that will always be a separate file. And SVG that I told you can be an embedded image. So it can be a separate file, or it can be embedded inside HTML itself. However, what we are going to use today is a separate file, image file, and how we can integrate it in a HTML web page. Okay. So let's take a scenario. I have to describe a scene. Suppose I'm writing a story and I'm going to describe a scene. Read through these statements, and it says, it's a sea beach. Kids are playing in the sea. Several of them are making sand castles. Some of them are playing with a ball. There is an ice cream van. There is a snack shop too. I can see a yacht. in a boat or maybe a ship. Okay, so when you're reading this story or these descriptions of a scene, you may imagine a whole lot of things. And it depends on how you have seen a sea beach. If you were on a sea beach, you can imagine easily. If you have watched a sea beach on TV or in movies, then you will have a very different imagination. And then piecing them all together may help you understand or imagine something like scene. But if I get a picture like this, instead of writing so many descriptive statements, if I just put up a picture like this, then it gives me much easier understanding of what I wanted to say. One picture will save me from writing these many lines, and these many lines are not really enough. This is not enough description. I didn't say that sun is setting or sun is rising. I can't really tell from this picture also that sun is rising or sun is setting. Then what's the color of ice cream van? I did not say that. How many kids are there? I didn't say that. But when I put up a picture, it gives a numerous amount of information, and that if it has to be described in words, it will be a whole lot of things, and it may not be able to get accommodated on one small screen, right? So a picture will save us 1,000 words, and it is so easy to integrate images in HTML. Let's see that. So in HTML, images are defined with the img tag. img tag, and it only embeds the image. It won't create the image. So I'm repeatedly telling you, HTML does not create an image. Rather, it only gives you a way to embed or integrate an existing image into your web page. So img tag is used to embed or integrate an image in an HTML web page. And how will I do that? I will write img tag, and then I will specify the path of the image file in a property called src or source, right? img tag src property linking to a file. Now that file can be present or should be present on your file system if you are giving a local path, or you can point it to a web path also, some image which is present already on internet on maybe same site or some other site, you can give a path there. So src is actually equal to the path of the image, how the image can be located, right? Let's see how it works. So when I have this tag put up in an HTML page with an assumption that a file named scene.jpg is present in the same folder where this HTML file is saved, I will be able to see that image getting loaded in the HTML. You can see the snapshot here, and I will show you the example right away. So let me open that example and you will see it. Okay, yep. So this is the live example. Now if I show you the source code of this HTML, I can go to view page source, and it is as simple as this. Now I can show you the folder where everything is put up. So this is the HTML file. Let me open this in Notepad maybe. So I'm opening it, let me open it in Notepad++, and I'm showing you here, right? So it's the same source code that you see on the page, right? So let me close this. and then come back to Notepad, and then what you also observed that there is a file called scene.jpg, and that was getting loaded. So one of you, Shyam, actually shared me another image yesterday, and which was this image, and I recognize this place. It is my college in RAU Pusa. So I will place this image now instead of the earlier image. So what I have to do for that, I have to simply change the name or path of the image. Pusa.jp JPEG. Okay, fine. FD change has to be saved. I say changed and I saved, and now I'm going to refresh the page. And wow, this page has come. This image has come. Fine. So this looks nice. So I can just embed any image in my HTML page. Now there is a little problem at this stage. When I load the image, it is loaded as per its default size. Okay. Now there could be a situation where this is too big for the screen that is available. Imagine this big image is loaded in your mobile phone. Really difficult to see because it may get beyond the screen width and height. You want to resize. Okay, so you can do that by using certain properties and maybe the styling. So let's now see how images can be resized. But before that, we should also provide an alternative text for the image. Now there could be a situation where I made a mistake that is correctable, but I made a mistake and the image is somehow not loaded. And mistake could be because the path that I specified is incorrect. Say by chance instead of Pusa, I typed PUSSA, Pusa. Okay, I made a mistake. It's a spelling mistake, but I don't know what has happened. So it will not load the image now. Okay, and that's the situation. Now what I can do is I can still give an alternative description of the image. So what is the property for that? ALT, and this is for alternative text description. Pusa campus. Okay, so if this image is by chance not loaded, there are many reasons. The spelling mistake is correctable, but there could be other reasons also. So if I have that, then it will display the alternative text. If somehow the image is not getting loaded, the alternative text will be displayed. But if I have the image loaded, then alternative text will disappear. It will not appear. Right? I am correcting the image path now. SRC is corrected and alt is still there, but now that text will not appear, only the image will appear. So this is an interesting feature of ing tag where we can provide an alternative text due to any reason. If the source is not loaded, alternative text will be displayed. Otherwise, the image will be loaded. There are chances, like I said, you can specify a file path which is remote. So let me pick a remote image. So let me go to a site, say imagine.in, right? This is what we have seen earlier. So this is an image, right? Read for free. And I'm copying that link and coming back here, and I am putting that link here. Fine. And I don't know if this is a path to the image or something else, but I'm just putting it here to test and see what happened. So this image is not getting loaded, right? So let me do one more thing. I'm here and I'm trying to get an image. copy link address, or let me get to an image, proper image. Okay, images, search for images, and I get this image, for example. Okay, fine, and I have this image, copy image address, and I am putting that. So instead of this, I'm putting this image address, and which is pointing to JPG, right? And now I have it. Fine. So earlier I gave an address, and that was an invalid address from Imagine, and it could not load the image. So my address could be wrong due to any reason, spelling mistake or invalid file or file moved out, or I don't know, you have no permission, etc. Right? So there could be many reasons for that. Okay, so let's come back to our pet image and we'll work on that. Okay, now this image is available. Fine. So alt is an important attribute. Actually, if you go by the proper specification of HTML, alt is a mandatory property. It has to be provided, otherwise your page will not be considered valid by browsers. Okay, so in some cases, like I said, if due to slow connection or error in SRC attribute, or due to any reason, or if user is using a screen reader, there could be some people who will not be able to see the image properly. For them, you can still provide the alternative text, and reader will explain them or read it for them, right? Okay. So this is the way, a very simple. And when, because of any reason, like here I had specified beach-scene.jpg, and you recognize that there is no such file present, it did not load that file or that image, but alternatively it showed the description. Fine. This is required. A web page will not be valid without this, but that is only when you are trying to validate the page. HTML is very flexible, and browsers are generally forgiving. All right, now we observe that image is too large for us. So there will be a situation where I have to resize. Now there are two ways of resizing image. One is through the style attributes, where we specify width and height of an image, and there is another way, which is width and height attributes or properties of the img tag. So img tag gives width and height attributes, as well as you have the general purpose style attributes, width and height, and you can use either of them. Okay. Width and height should be usually specified, because some browsers may not be able to put this up properly without width and height attributes. Okay, but it is going to give you the same result. You should be using either width and height or a style attribute width and height in this format, right? So here you see it is a HTML property, and here you see it's a style width and height dimensions. Okay, we'll talk about dimensions and positioning and layout a little later, but for the time being, you can always use this width and height properties and width and height styles. So let's do that. Our image is too large at the moment. If you can notice, this image is too large, right? I have to scroll to see this, and let me reduce a little bit. The size of the image has to be reduced. So I have a choice. I say width, and I can say width should be, say, 80%. When I say percent, you know, measurements, the dimensional measurements can be absolute or relative, and we have seen that earlier. So dimensions like pixels, or we say VW or EM, we have seen that in font cases, and similarly here also we can specify all numeric dimensional things can be specified in multiple units. So when I say 80% width, that means 80% of the original size, and Now I will have to see if it works, and if it works, how. So I just said width. I am not specifying height for the time being, and let us see what happens. So it has, the width has increased, or what happened? Let's come back and see what happened. One second. It is giving me something extra because of copy paste, and I don't want this. All right, so let me give width, absolute width for the time being in say 100 pixel. Okay, and I don't need to put the unit, put the semicolon here. It is not a style. Okay, so we see now the image has been reduced drastically, and I have specified only width, but height is also auto adjusted. So it maintains the aspect ratio or the width to height dimension automatically, unless until I have specified a special value for height also. Suppose I know height is lesser than width. Now by mistake, I want to skewed, I want to have a skewed view where height is more than width, then I can do this thing, and then you will see the picture will be completely skewed, but that is my choice, right? So I have a stretched, vertically stretched image and horizontally contracted image. So I can control the dimension of the image by specifying height and width appropriately. Or if we don't, if we just choose one, then the other dimension is auto calculated. So if I said height is 200 pixel, width will be auto calculated, and the purpose is to maintain the aspect ratio. So you see, so if I increase the height again, the width will automatically get adjusted. And this is how I can use the dimensions properly, and it will give me proper result. I can do the same using style attribute. So here I say HIGIGHT, and I said 400 pixel, and it's not going to make any difference for me, right? And if I change it to say 500 pixel, you will see the image will become larger in vertical height and appropriately in the horizontal dimension too, right? So we have two options to set the sizes. Let's keep it like this. So sizing can be done. Okay, so this is how we have a few properties on image tag. The first thing to remember is img is the tag to include an image in the HTML page. You have to specify the value for src. It should be the right kind of URL or location or path of the image. If it is local to the file system, you can have absolute path on the file system, or you can have a relative path relative to the current web page. Alt or ALT attribute should be defined as an alternative text for the image. It will not be displayed if the image is displayed. Otherwise, when there is any problem in loading the image, then alt text will be displayed. You can use width and height properties or attributes of the img tag to specify the size of the image. Alternatively, you can use CSS width and height properties to define the image. That's an alternative. You should not be using both because the system can get confused. Okay, now let's start doing some styling of the images. So right now the image that is loaded is plain simple image, but maybe I want to do a framing around the image, right? A bordering. Okay, so let's try that. And we can do that using various styles. So let's begin with border styling. Border is the property. Now remember, this is the CSS property. So whenever you see this picture here, you can understand that what I'm talking about on this slide is mostly or all CSS or styling. When you see image like H or HTML, I'm going to talk mostly about HTML. So this is how you can differentiate easily. Okay, so I'm talking about a CSS property called border, which you can specify to specify what? The styling of the border, width or thickness of the border, and the color of the border, right? So we can first of all create a border around the element content, and then we can do a whole lot of things with that border. Set the style, set the width, set the color, and maybe a few more things that we will learn. Okay, let's get going. So border style is another property, and that is a specific property just to specify the style. So let's get started with that. Let's see what are the options available. So there are many possible styles: dotted style, dashed style, solid, double groove, rich, and each of them have its own appearance. So let's try with few, and we will stick to one which is most liked or most interesting for us. Okay, so let me first start specifying a border. Now I already have a style set, right? I will start putting more properties on this. So I say border style, and I say solid. Okay, let's see what happens with this. So let's go to the page and see what happens with that. Okay, now it got a black thick border around it, right? Yes. And if I change it, say I said groove, was that the option? Groove, yes, groove, not grooved. I have to be very careful about the words that I'm using because these are very, very specific. Okay, groove. Let's see if it makes a difference. So let's go to the page, refresh. And did it do anything? It looks like it did something, but it's not so visible because the thickness is very little. So let me look for the other property which or other style which may help me make the border little thicker than the default. So let's see if I have a choice. So we have seen this solid border. Let's look for the border thickness. So border property is giving you that, but there is a very specific property called border width, which we can set to specify the thickness of all sides of the border. So let's use border width. And it's a dimensional property, so we will be able to specify this in each unit. So border width. And if I say 5 pixel, right? 5 pixel thick border. So let us see what happens with that. And now we see it's little thicker. Can we increase more and see what happens? Let me make it quite significant, 15 pixel. And then we see, right? Now this looks good. And it looks like, okay, it is a grooved border, right? Now, isn't it looking like a nice frame around the picture? Okay, let's make it a little more thicker, maybe 25, and then it will be much nicer. Right, now this looks like a window. Okay, but hold on, I am not happy with the grayish color that comes by default. Can I change the color? So let me see if I can change the color. So border width I have used. I can use border width and specified dimensions in pixel or EM or VW and percentage and relatively, right? All that measurement or dimension measurements can be used. Fine. So we have increased the border width. And we can do that in different ways. Okay, what we can also do is we can have different border width for different sides. So when I specify border width and one value, the same value will be applied on all four sides of the border: top, right, bottom, left. However, if I want to have specific values, different values, I mean, for different sides of the border, I am free to specify different dimensions. So for example, in the last case that you see, it has provided four values. So four values means top will be 25 pixel thick, right will be 10 pixel thick, bottom will be 4 pixel thick, and the left hand side will be 35 pixel width thick. So you can specify all four dimensions, or you can just specify one, and you can also specify two dimensions, which will be taking top and right, and top will be replicated to bottom and right will be replicated to left. So you can choose, and if you have specified top and forgot to specify the bottom, then top value will be applied to bottom as well. If you have specified right and you have forgot to specify left, the right will be carried over to the left, right? So you can choose, and you can be very, very specific about each side border width. Similarly, you can do for border style also. You can say border style top, border top style, like that. There are options, but that is little detailed. I will not see those examples right now. Okay, third thing is coloring. And I'm not happy with the current color. So Border is giving me those options, but I want to have a specific choice, and the choice that I have is very obvious: border-color. And I can specify color for each side separately. However, I want to have a uniform color. So let me just use that. Let me go back to the styling, and I say border-color. And if I say yellow, okay, right, and I go back to the picture here on the page and see what happens. Good. So it looks a little different, little attractive, with a yellow color grooving all around this image. Now you can also understand that the image is not being cropped. Image is inside the border. So image has not been crippled or cropped. Image dimension is not changing, and it is as it is. And we can always go back and change the image dimension. We had the height property. If I increase this, it will again expand, and borders will still be all around the image, right? So I have a larger image with the border. Fine. So now we have done what? We have specified the border style, border width, and border color. And I can choose colors as per my preference. So in the color, we have seen different options. We have used the named units like yellow. We can use RGB units, and here I can specify anything. So let me randomly put some number between 0 and 255 and see what happens. I'm not sure of this number and its resultant color. I've just put it, and let's see the effect. Yeah, little different, and I can keep playing with the color combinations and see whichever is the best for me, and I can remain with it, right? So you have a whole lot of options available. Okay, so border gives you a lot of flexibility. Remember, these border properties that we are learning right now are not limited to image. This border can be used in other HTML elements also, and we will use that in other places also. But for the time being, it is giving the image such a nicer look, right? It was so plain earlier. Now with the border, and it looks like a framed window appearing. Good. Let's go back to the presentation slides. So we have used the color, and this is how the appearance will change. Fine. So we can have different color for different sides. Similarly, the orientation or calculation counting begins from top and then it goes clockwise. So top, right, bottom and left. This is how the values will be treated. So you have to be careful when you specify more than one values. You have to remember it will be considered in this order: top, right, bottom and left, right? So you can remember this starting from top and going clockwise. All right, so we have learned how to manage or specify style, weight and color. Let's now try to make it little smarter. And what I want to do is right now the ends are very pointed, right? I want to make it little curvy, a rounded corner. Okay, can I do that? Yes. And the option for that is border radius. So when I say, well, border will have a curve on the corners and I want to curve it. When I'm curving, I will provide it's like an arc, right? So when I'm creating an arc, it has to have a radius. So I will specify the radius so that it creates a rounded corner. Let's see if I can use it. Okay, so let me start putting the values in multiple lines so that it is easily readable for us. I can do that. There is no problem with it. I can always do this, and border color, let it be with the property name so that I don't make a mistake. And then I say border radius. And here I say width of border is 25 pixels. So anything less than that will not make sense. So let me put it a little larger radius, 40 pixel. Okay, I saved it and I'm going back to the page and refresh and see what happened. Here you go. The border is now a little rounded, right? Is it looking nicer? Maybe, may not be. It depends on your choice and it depends on your user's choice. But you have a choice. You have got a beveled or smoothened corner instead of a pointed corner. So you can always use this. Interestingly, you can make an image appear in a oval shape, or you can make it appear in a circle by appropriately adjusting the size, that is height and width, and the border radius. Let me quickly do that. And remember, that will start erasing some of the content. Okay, so let me do it little quickly for your comfort. I know the dimension, height is 600 pixels. So height is like this, okay, 600 pixel. And if I have a radius which is half of this, that means 300, okay, 300 like this. Then here it will be creating like a full semicircle, right? So let's try that and see what happens. So 300 pixel this time. Okay, I had removed RGB, that is why the color disappeared. So let me put it back. Okay. Here you go. Now it is looking like a oval shape, or at least elliptical shape, right? But you will realize now that the edges have been cropped. This is a choice that you have to make, right? So you can decide to have a much larger circular rounded and corners, but you have to compromise on the content of the image because it will be crippled. It will be like as if through scissors you have cut the images on the corners, right? So border will not generally crop the image, but rounded border will crop the image portions. So you have to use it very carefully. Now with this kind of border radius, which is creating it like a oval shape or elliptical shape, this border style does not look good. So let me go back and change it to maybe dashed and see what happens. Yeah, maybe like this, or maybe dotted. So let me put it dotted and see what happens. Yeah, so this way it looks little different, right? And you have a choice. Now it does not look like a border, it looks like an art piece. So a picture has been cut from the edges and then dots have been put up all around it, right? So this looks nice. Okay, and you have a lot of choices available through the border properties, and you can decorate your image to great extent, right? Let's go back to the presentation. And so border radius is a dimension property. So you have to put dimensions and you are remembering the units, pixel, em, vw, percentage, etc. So you can use any of them and create a rounded corner. All right. And this is one example that we have already done. In fact, more than this. So it is combined with border properties, and then you get the best appearance, right? Now remember, as I told you earlier, border is not just limited to images, but it gives a great experience, great appearance on images. Border properties can be used on other tags also. For example, I am using the border properties on a P tag. Of course, it has done some abnormal thing. You can see that the border, because it is a rounded corner border, some of the text is getting inserted or just getting too close to the border, right? And it is not looking so nice. There will be options to correct this appearance and make it better. So I don't have to just ignore the border radius. I will have to do something more so that proper distancing is maintained between the border and the content. I will take a look at that in our next session. Right, so border is very useful property and it gives a lot of elegance, a lot of highlighting and various other good appearance experience with the content that you have. So border is something that you will be using quite a lot when you are going to create nice, interactive, interesting web pages. All right, so that is the end of this session. Actually, we have done it very quickly, but before going into the next session, I will give you some more examples on border itself. I showed you how you can use it on images. Let's now use it on other tags. For example, the P tag. Okay, let's see how it works. So I had the text earlier in the presentation. If I go, we had made a big text, right? Here is the text. I will copy and paste in the P. All right, so this is how it is. And let's see how it appears. I will save this file. And then all of them appears on a single line, of course, because the P tag will not make it appear on different lines just because it has a empty or line break. I have to purposely put a line break after every line so that it appears actually on a different line. Okay, now it is here. And let me put it little, okay, let it be here. I will come back to that later. And I want to put a border around this, so I have to put up a style. And in this style, I can put everything that I wanted to put around border. So let me use border. Now what I'm going to do this time, I'm not going to use border style, border width, border color separately. I can put everything together. There is a shortcut property called border itself, and I can use that if I am specifying a particular style, I'm specifying particular width and color. I can put all of them together, starting with the width. So the first value of border should be width. So let me put up width 5 pixel, and let me just put semicolon so that I don't forget it at the end. And then before semicolon, I have to put more values. So space separated values for the border and different pieces of the border. Okay, so 5 pixel is the width, and I say solid, and then I say green, right? So this is what it says: width, it says style, and then the color. So three things about border. I can put all of them in one single declaration. So let's save it and see what happens, right? It puts up this. Then I want to put up a border radius, suppose. So border radius cannot be put up inside the border property. It has to be specified separately. That is not possible in the, it's not possible to put up border radius inside the border shorthand. And now what I want to do is I want to not have a rounded on this corner and this corner. Can I put 4 different values? Let's see. If I put 0 pixel, 5 pixel, 5 pixel, or maybe 10 pixel, or 15 pixel. Let's see what happens. Say 25 pixel, I'm giving different values. And then 35 pixel, I'm just giving different values to see what's the effect, which value is picked up on which corner. All right, so I gave 4 radius values. And here you go. The first one is for the top left corner. The second one is for the top right corner. Third one is for the right bottom corner. And fourth one is for the left bottom corner. Okay, so that is how I can specify different styling for different corners. So now I want to make it a little interesting. I want this corner to be simple or without any rounding, and the opposite corners. So I want opposite corners to be rounded or pointed. So I can do this. I can say, well, this corner should be 0 and the opposite corners of same dimension. So now I did this and it looks like this. And if I want to make it more, I can really get rid of these two, because I know the inheritance part. If one corner is available, the opposite corner will get the same value if I have not specified. So I can use this shortcut, and then I set only two values, and that will get replicated on the opposite corners, right? But here there is a problem. When I'm making this little beveled, you see the content is going inside, or rather outside the border. It looks like the border has come inside the content. Now there is a property that we can use. We will talk about that in our next session, but I want to give you a glimpse here itself. And that property is called padding. And if I put padding, say 30 pixel, my internal content of the P will get little shifted towards padding. If I say padding, it will create padding all around the content, and you will see that first. Here you go. So now you have space all around the content, and then you have the edges created nicely, the corners created nicely, and now there is no problem with the visibility of the content, and it is not getting mixed or overlapping with the border, and you have a nice look. Now you may observe that P by default is taking the full width of the screen. That's the default behavior. I can specify a specific width by using the width dimension, and I say 200 pixel. Okay, and let's see what happens. Fine. So everything got adjusted into 200 pixel, and height is adjusted accordingly. Now we will see what happens if the height is also specified and the content is more than the thing where height can accommodate it. I have a question from Shyam. How to know that dimension is for what side? Fine. So dimensions are following a rule. When we are specifying multiple dimensions together, we know that it appears in certain order. So let me go back here. For example, I said border radius 0, 35, and 0 is for the top left corner. The first value is for the top left corner. The second value is for the top right corner. And when I did not specify the value for bottom left corner, bottom right corner, and bottom left corners, this one will get inherited from the opposite corner, and this one will get inherited from this corner. And that is how this corner gets the value of 0 pixel in this case, and for this one, which was not specified, it is picking value from here, which was 35 pixel, right? So when you are using a shortcut notation, you are always going to get different, you are always going to follow a sequence, okay? So in case of border style, or in case of border width or color or radius, when you are specifying multiple values, it follows certain order. So in case of style and width and color, it was taking in this order the top side and then going clockwise, and it is always going clockwise. So top side, then right side, then bottom side, and then left side. That was for style, width, and color. However, radius is for corners. So it begins with the top left corner and then it goes clockwise. So from top left to top right to bottom left, bottom right to bottom left, right? Clear, Sham? Good. All right, so this is how we can make anything look nicer by appropriately defining the borders. And borders will give our web page a very different look. Otherwise, a plain simple text was not looking great earlier. Now it is put up around, put up inside something, and that actually catches the eyes of the viewer, right? And it is not looking like a regular border. You see, I created in a different way, so it looks like some kind of art form, and that art is applicable here also. Someone who is not familiar with HTML will not recognize that these are done through HTML and CSS properties. People will realize or maybe imagine that this is the full image itself. It is an image which is created using art, but you are able to do all this using your plain simple knowledge of HTML and CSS. And this is so great for you and for your viewers also, right? Okay, so we are going to end this session now. In our next session, we will get much deeper inside the bordering and spacing features, and we will actually learn about the box model of HTML and CSS. Box model is very important feature which we can exploit to lay the content nicely. So let's understand about box model in our next session. Any question before we end this session now? All right. So we will meet again after 5 minutes break. So it's about 10. We'll meet again at 10:05. Thank you, guys.